Assalamualaikum, ma'am.
Walaikum Assalam. I hope you all are fine. Let's start our today's lecture. In last lecture, we have studied different types of computers and we have studied the components of computer, that was hardware and the software. And then we studied the types of hardware and different type of software. In this lecture, we will discuss the components that we can use along with the types that we have discussed earlier, because every type of computer has its own characteristics. So according to their use and according to their characteristics, we can use different type of components with them. So we will discuss the components of different computer systems. So these was the types that we have discussed earlier in the previous class. These types are supercomputers, mainframe computers, mini computer, multimedia computer systems, mid-range computer system, workstations, PC, personal computer, or it is also called microcomputers, analog computers, digital computer, and hybrid computer. The first and the last three types are according to the input, and start. The other types are according to the size. So now we will discuss the components of these systems. General components of computer system. In almost every type of computer, these components can be used. These components include motherboard, and the parts that are pasted are etched on the motherboard or fixed on motherboard. We have to use these components. Processor. Every computer has processor, number of processor. The quantity of processor can be different, and the speed of processor also can vary, but every computer has processor, sound card, graphics card, memory, secondary storage, and external components that are available outside the system unit. These are input devices, output devices, and peripheral devices. Now we will discuss the general components. Now, internal components. Internal components means that are available inside the system unit, the box in which all the hardware components are attached, are enclosed. These are our internal components. Now, secondary storage. Secondary storage means that is not directly accessible to the processor. The memory type that is known as the main memory or primary memory, that is directly accessible to the computer. But the problem is that the memory use the circuits that cannot hold the data for on permanent basis. These type of memories are used because of their speed and because they can be directly accessed by the processor, as they are very near to the processor. They are attached near to the processor. So for the speed purpose, we are using these memories. So the currently executed instructions are stored in the main memory. But whenever we need to store anything permanently inside of a computer, we have to use the additional memory that can hold the data permanently for future use. These type of memories are known as secondary storage devices or secondary memories. That is also known as auxiliary storage, as it will add the extra functionality inside of a computer, like the calculators can be used for the calculations, but they don't have the memory, so we cannot recall all the calculation that we have done inside the calculators. But the same calculator that are available in the computer, we can store our results or the data by for over calculation. Like in Excel, we are calculating different things, but these files can be saved for the future use, and we can make additions in that files, and we can use these files as a template. So we can for that purpose, we must have the secondary storage devices. That is non-volatile memory. The volatile memory means that need continuous voltage. If there is no voltage or current is available, all the data will be removed from that sort of memories. But secondary storage devices are made from the material that are non-volatile. They can hold the data if there is no electricity available, and they are used to store the data and program for the retrieval. If we want to recall that data or reuse that data, we can use that memory. There are many kinds of secondary storage. Every type of memory has its own advantages and disadvantages, and most commonly used storage device is hard disk. Every computer has hard disk. as we have to hold over files for the future use, so we must have to use the hard disk. Now, hard drives. Hard disk or hard drive is known as hard disk is storage device that is used to hold the data, and the software that is attached to hard disk is known as hard disk driver. So we are using both things, hard drives, the component or the device that is used to hold the data, that is known as drives. And if I am talking about the software that is used to read and write data from these drives are known as the hard disk drivers. So a computer hard drive or hard disk drive, HDD, the short form of that drive, is one kind of technology that stores the operating system, application, and data files such as documents, picture, music that your computer uses. Because that is permanent storage device, so all the important things like operating system windows are installed inside the computer, and all the files that are of operating system and that needs to run over system is stored on hard disk. And over personal data files, like if we have documents, we have pictures, we have music files, we have video files, we have any type of file, we have to store these files on the hard drives. And the rest of components in our computer work together to show you the applications and files stored on your hard drive. Like whenever we have to use any file, we have to access that file from the hard drive. And if we want to access any program, like if we want to open Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Zoom, any software that we want to run, we have to load that software from the hard disk. So other programs uses the hard disk for their storage and to access files. But whenever we need any file, we have to shift that file from hard disk to the main memory unless we cannot access that file. Now, how it does work? As I told you, we have a driver that is responsible to read and write all the data available on the hard disk. Now, what is the structure of the hard disk? There are different platters inside the hard disk. We have a box in which all the plates are enclosed, and the both side of these platters are used to hold the data. And we have to make the partitions by using that platters, because we have to pinpoint the locations on which we have to store the data. If we are not assigning the addresses to different locations, we will be unable to access any file. Like in a colony or in a area, we have to divide over whole area into different parts, and we are assigning different addresses to these houses. So access are to locate any person from a huge area, from a huge sector. So for the same purpose, we are dividing all over area of hard disk into different partitions, and that is named as tracks and sectors. So and that is the way how we can store the data on the hard disk. And there is a read write arm. In the last of the read write arm, there is a read write head. A laser light is used to read all the data available on these plates, and that read write head is responsible to read data to the hard disk and from the hard disk, and it is also used to write some data on the hard disk. That's why that is known as read write head. And the arm on which that head is fixed, that is known as read write arm. To make this process faster, the platter spins as the arm moves across it. The arm is fixed and the plate will revolve or move, and when the required part come under the read write arm, we can access that specific part. The components that hold the data can be spread out all over the hard disk. Like we are placing all the different components on the hard disk that are responsible for read and write. That can be a circuit, that can be a plate. That is, the data is not written sequentially. There is indexing system to allow the arm to find all of the relevant data. As in previous time, we was using the cassettes in which we have to access our data sequentially in the sequence, and we cannot randomly access anything. But nowadays we are using the random access method for storage and for access. For that purpose, we are using the indexing system. Like in the start of the books, we are also using the indexing system on which we have mentioned the chapter name and the page number. Same in the case, we have an index table in the hard disk memory. The operating system will see the file name and then the address in front of that file name. And whenever the hard disk needs to locate any location or any file, it will read the address of that file from the index table. So we are using indexing file our file system. That is also a kind of file system through which we can store the data inside the hard disk, and also we can access the data from the hard disk. The platter and the arm are delicate, so they are covered by a steel case. As I told you, we have enclosed all these things inside a case, so we can prevent that things from the damage that can be caused by the dust or any external circumstances that can disturb our data. So we, for the safety purpose, we have enclosed all these parts inside the box. So the arm that is displayed on that plate, that is read write arm, and on these platters we have to store the data, and all other circuit is used to help read write arm to read data from the hard disk and to write data on the hard disk. That is the picture of the open hard disk, or we can say that that is the inside of the hard disk, and that is covered by the for the safety measures. So as I told you, we have to store the data in form of tracks and sector. The circular areas we have to divide a plate in the form of tracks. Like whenever we are dividing a circular movement in the circular way, we can see that that is over tracks, and that is named as 0, 1, 2, 3 up to so on. And on both sides we are using the track number, and further we are dividing all the tracks, or we are dividing these tracks into the sectors. These sectors are the 8 sectors, and each sector also have a number. So like the pointing values are shown in like track 0 and sector 1, and by using these numbers we can access any location from the hard disk. And every platter has its own tracks and sectors and own addresses of tracks and sectors, and different platters are used. Multiple platters can be used inside the hard disk, and each platter has its own read and write head. The second form of memory is primary memory. As at the start I have told you about the primary memory. Have you any idea that I told you? Can anyone tell me about what is meant by the primary memory? As we have discussed the secondary memory, so the primary memory can be opposite to the secondary memory. So can anyone have any idea, or can you tell a little bit about primary memory?
Miss, sorry, can you repeat the question?
What do you know about primary memory? As before going into the detail of secondary memory, I told you about the primary memory. Have you any idea what is meant by the primary memory? As for a hint, I can say that the primary memory is reverse to the secondary memory.
So primary memory is like the main portion of the memory, like it takes over, like it's the center, like it controls everything in the computer.
Okay. And we can say that that is a volatile memory. And what is the term volatiles mean? As I told you, what is meant by the non-volatile memory, as secondary memory is non-volatile memory. Have you any idea or not?
No, miss.
Okay. Volatile means we need voltage. If any memory needs a continuous voltage supply to hold its data, that means that is a volatile memory. If there is no voltage, it all the data will be erased from that kind of memory. And if any memory can hold the data permanently, that means that is a non-volatile memory. If there is no voltage, the device can hold the data. So the primary memory, the main difference in the primary memory and secondary memory is that the primary memory is not a permanent memory. That is a fast memory, and that the processor can directly access the primary memory. As we can say that all the currently executed instructions will be kept in the primary memory. But why we are using the secondary memory? Why primary memory is not enough? Because there is the main reason we have to store our data permanently, and our primary memory has no capability to store the data permanently, as the circuits from which the primary memory made can hold the data for temporary purpose, and when the electric power is cut off, all the data will be washed out from the primary memory. So we have to use the both type of memories inside the computer, primary memory and main memory. The primary memory also have two types or three types of memory. There are basic two types, RAM and ROM. But by using the RAM technology, we have made another memory that is known as the cache memory. That is also the additional memory in between the processor and the RAM. We have placed another memory. Most frequently used instruction will be kept in the cache memory to increase the speed of our computer. As RAM stands for random access memory. We can randomly access any address from the RAM, and that is a volatile memory. That means that can hold the data for a temporary purpose. We also have a permanent memory in the primary memory that is named as ROM, read-only memory. But what is the disadvantage, or we can say that what is the limitation in the ROM? It, as its names indicate, that is read-only memory. We can only read the data from the ROM. We cannot make any changes onto the ROM, or we cannot write anything onto the ROM. As the operating system is the first thing that we have to load inside the memory when the computer will be started. But before the starting process, we have to go towards the desktop. For that purpose, we have to store some instruction before the startup. For the starting of our computer, we kept that type of instructions in the ROM, so we can start our computer. Like our date is saved, our time is saved, our desktop wallpapers are always remain same. So these type of informations will be saved on the read-only memory, and that instructions are written by the manufacturer of the computer, and we will be unable to change that instructions. So that is used to save the instructions like BIOS. BIOS means basic input output system, and all the things that will be used to start and restart our computer, that instruction are stored on the ROM. So the primary memory have three types: ROM, RAM, and cache. And cache is also made from the technology, and that technology is used to make the RAM chips, but we have used it as an additional memory to increase the speed of our computer. Now, the types of memory, main memory is known as RAM and ROM, and these memory also have further types. The RAM has two types of memory, SRAM and DRAM. Static RAM and dynamic RAM. And ROM also have different types, PROM, EPROM, and double EPROM. Now we will discuss these types one by one. Random access memory, RAM. It is a read-write memory. As I told you, ROM means read-only memory. Read-write memory means we can read the data from the memory, and we can also write data towards that memory. The program and data that, like if we have double-clicked on any file, that file will be loaded from hard disk to the main memory. Why? Because the processor can only communicating with the main memory. The processor have no direct link towards the hard disk. So we are using the primary memory in between the hard disk and the processor. So we have to load each and every file inside the RAM. If the file is not available on the RAM, the computer or the processor cannot execute over data. So for that purpose, we can say that all the programs and data that are required by the CPU during the execution of program, during the processing, when and the computer is calculating anything, our computer is doing any work, all the data or all the programs that are needed by the CPU that must be stored inside that memory, because the CPU can only communicate to the only one type of memory, that is the RAM. It is a volatile memory. That means it lost all the data when the power is turned off. If
Ma'am,
yes.
ma'am, can you please repeat what do you mean by execution of a program?
Execution means when we are carrying out the instruction, like I have written that we have to take the input from the user. The computer is taking input from the user, like 2 and 2. Then I have written the next instruction. The computer have to add these two numbers that are entered by the user. The computer is adding the number. When the computer is fulfilling my instructions, that means that is the execution of our program. I have saved any file inside the computer. The process in which the computer is saving the file, that means execution of my instruction. The working on the instruction is means the processing or the execution of that instruction or that program. Okay, volatile memory means it will. Okay, thank you. It is the volatile memory means that all the data will be erased from the memory when the power is turned off or and the electric supply is cut off. Now there are two types of RAM, that is SRAM, static random access memory, and DRAM, dynamic random access memory. Both types of memories are used inside the computer, and both types has its own uses. SRAM retains data bits in the memory for as long as power is supplied to it. So as it is a type of the memory that is that can hold only data when the there is the voltage. Unlike DRAM, which stores bits in cell consisting of capacitor and transistor, SRAM does not have to be periodically refreshed. There is no need to refresh that things after some time, like to increase the speed or to access anything. We have to refresh DRAM for every time. So that is different from the SRAM is different from the DRAM. It can hold the data and there is no need to refresh the contents of SRAM. That's why the SRAM technology is used to build the cache memory. As I told you, we have to store the most frequently used instructions inside the cache memory that are needed most frequently by the CPU. So we kept that type of instruction in the cache memory, and that is made from the SRAM technology. Because we have added the cache memory to increase the speed of our computer, and so we have used the technology in which there is no need to refresh over data for the accessing, or for there is no need to updation. So and that type of technology is known as SRAM memory. Now, DRAM is the type of semiconductor memory that needs to be refreshed after some time, and that is used to build the RAM chips. Like we have put the cache in between the RAM and processor, and after cache memory, the next chip is the RAM that is accessed by the CPU, that is made from the DRAM technology. We have to refresh all the files after some time. That needs a little bit time. So that's why we can say that the fastest memory of a computer is cache memory, and the RAM is on the second number, if we are talking about the memories available inside the computer. Now, ROM, read-only memory, as I told you, it will store the fundamental information that needs to start our computer, or that needs to check either all the devices are attached to our computer or not. So all the instructions that are needed for the booting of our system, for the start and restart of our system, these programs are stored in read-only memory, that is known as ROM. So we can start over computer. These instructions are written by the manufacturer, and we cannot make any type of changes in that instruction, and we cannot write any other thing on that type of chips. So it is non-volatile memory, as if there is no voltage, it can hold the data. So we can say that it always retains the data. So that is permanent type of storage device. Now there are different type of ROM. PROM, programmable read-only memory. If we have writing any instruction, or the manufacturer is writing any instruction on that type of ROM, if there is any mistake occurred, we cannot make the changes. So that is programmable read-only memory. Only at once the data can be written on that. If we have made any mistake, there is no chance to erase that data and rewrite the data. EPROM, erasable programmable read-only memory. These type of memory can be reprogrammed. If we want to erase any data from that type of memory, we have to use the ultraviolet rays through which we can erase some instructions from the memory, and we can rewrite that on the memory. But that is a difficult task, so it needs a time to erase the data and rewrite that data. Then double EPROM is electrically erasable programmable read-only memory. We have to use the electronic waves instead of ultraviolet light, so we can easily erase the data from that type of memory, and we can rewrite the data. MROM, mask ROM. Mask ROM is kind of read-only memory that is masked up at the time of production. Like other type of ROM, mask ROM cannot be enabled the user to change the data stored in it. Like that is strictly used by the manufacturer only. Like other types of ROM can be used by the professionals, but that type of ROM cannot be used by any other person instead of manufacturer. If it can, the process would be difficult or slow. So we are not handing over any type of that memory towards any person. Now, cache memory. Cache memory is made from the DRAM technology, and before when we was using the previous computers, we was using the RAM, but to access the instructions, as the RAM has are larger in the size, to search the instruction or file from the RAM and to access the file from the RAM takes a lot of time. And when the RAM is full, we have to swap the files or the programs, like we have to shift some of the files towards the hard disk, and again we have to shift the needed files towards the RAM. So that takes a lot of time. So we have added additional memory inside the computer that is in between the RAM and the CPU. That is known as the cache memory. So most frequently used instructions that are used multi times, and after 1 second or after nanoseconds, we are using the same instruction or same file, and we can shift that file from RAM to the cache memory. That has less distance from as compared to the RAM, so we can easily access the data that is available inside the cache memory. So it increases the efficiency as well as the speed of our computer. So it acts as a temporary storage area that the computer processor can retrieve data from easily. So temporary means it cannot hold the data on the permanent basis. Cache memory is sometimes called CPU memory because it is typically integrated directly onto the CPU chip. So it is attached along with the CPU or placed on a separate chip. Sometimes it can be placed in between the RAM or the CPU. So in both forms, the cache memory is available. In order to be close to the processor, the cache memory needs to be much smaller than the main memory, as we have to use the additional memory to increase our speed. So if it is less in size, it can be easily accessed, and there will be a lot less search time to search any data from the memory. So the technology on which we have made the cache memory, that is also a fast technology. So it will increase the efficiency of our computer. Now the registers. As we can say that all the files that is in the execution or that is in the processing, like I have opened the MS Paint, I have opened the PowerPoint, I have opened the Zoom program, all these files will be available in the RAM. And like the slides that on which are the tools from the PowerPoint on which we are working, or I am using the new slide tool or a copy tool multi times, I will shift that type of instructions on the cache memory. But whenever I am doing something that is the processing that is done by the CPU, the instructions that are needed by that process. Like I have given the instruction 2 plus 2. Whenever I am adding that instruction, that 2 and 2 and the instruction addition will be saved on the register. So we can say that the current instruction that is in execution, that will be saved, the data related to that instruction will be saved on the registers. As the registers are the part of CPU, are the processor, they can hold a little amount of data, and there are 32 or 64 registers are available inside the computer, and every register has in its own purpose. Like some registers are used to hold the address, some registers are used to hold the data, some instruction registers are used to handle the instructions. So every register has its own purpose. So we can say that that is the memory of processor, and that is very smaller inside. So the registers are faster than the cache memory, but that can only used by the one instruction that is in processing. As we know, the computer is a multitasking thing, so multiple things are open and we are working on the multiple things, but a processor can work on a single task at the same time. So the task, the data that is related to that task will be saved on the registers. So the computer need processor register for manipulating data and the register for holding a memory address. So according to the need, we are using different registers. So that is the hierarchy of the memory. As I told you, the registers are the fastest memory, as it is the memory of the processor, and we can say that that is part of our processor, so that is placed on the processor. So that is the fastest memory. The second number is speedest memory is cache, the third one is RAM, and the fourth one is hard disk. And after the hard disk, the external devices like USBs and the CDs are on the next stage. Now the processor are the brain of the computer. That is the main part of the computer that are used to process anything, or that is used to manipulate anything. So a processor is piece of hardware that interprets the instruction that drive a computer. Like I have given, open a file. All the working is done by the processor for opening a file. From where the processor will take that file, what is the name of file, how to open the file, how to show that file in front of the user, that working is done by the processor. So all the working is actually done by the processor. So the processor are the brains of the computer with the good reason. Without a processor, computer cannot even run the program, because when there is no processing or the execution of any instruction, how we can run our computer? Because the computer is unable to communicate with the user, they cannot take the instruction and they cannot translate the instructions, so they cannot fulfill the instructions of the user. So processors are also called the central processing unit. So there are, the second name of the processor is CPU. We are using alternative word for the processor, that is a CPU. Processing unit takes instructions from the computer's random access memory. As I told you, we have to save all the files that is available that we needed for the processor. That instruction must be saved on the RAM, as the processor can only communicate with the RAM directly. The CPU decodes and processes an action when an instruction is received. Like we are giving different type of instructions, like we are adding the numbers inside the computer, we are giving instructions in form of voice, we are giving instruction in form of images. But in the first lecture, we have discussed that computer is a digital machine that can only understand 0 and 1. So that is the responsibility of processor to decode or to translate the user's instruction into 0, 1, and then fulfill that instruction, then carry out that instruction, and after the translation. And when they and the processor have done all the work on that instruction, it will then it will also decode that instruction into the user's language, and the result will be displayed in the front of the user. Now there are different parts of the processor. The main parts of the processors are ALU, register and the memories that can be L1 and L2 memory. Arithmetic and logic unit ALU consists of two parts, arithmetic unit and the logic unit. In the arithmetic unit, we can add, subtract, multiply, and divide the numbers. In the logical unit, we have to compare different numbers. Like we can compare by using the logical unit, we can make the decisions, like if the ticket sold by the seller is equal to the number of seats available in the hall, we can say that there is no space available in the hall. So whenever we have to compare any value, we have to use the logical unit. So we can say that arithmetic and logic unit is used to carry out the arithmetic and logic operation. It operates with the integer numbers, like integer numbers are the whole numbers, and the floating point numbers, like that is not a whole number, that has a decimal part. Also, we can calculate both type of data. And then there is the register that hold the instructions received from other parts of computer. It tells the ALU but processes to carry out and stores the result of that operations. Like when the processor is doing 2 plus 2, that 2 and the plus sign will be stored on the registers, and the result that is calculated by the processor, that is also stored on that registers. Processors include L1 and L2 memory, that is cache memory, that allows the processor to store data locally without having to retrieve it from the RAM. As I told you, the most frequently used instruction will be stored on the cache memory. The presence of this component helps the computer to work quicker and more efficiently. Working of the processor, as we can say that what are the main steps to process anything. These are that is the cycle that has the 3-step fetch, decode, and execute. That I told you, fetch means it will take the instruction from the user or from any device. Like I have given the command of the print, the CPU will receive that command from the printer. So that is the first step, that is the fetch. The fetch and the fetch cycle, it involves receiving or fetching an instruction. The instruction is sent from the RAM to the CPU. Like the printer's driver will be available into the RAM, and the CPU will receive that instruction from the RAM. Decoding, as I told you, the computer cannot understand the language of the human or the user or any other device. So the computer have to decode that instruction into the language. That decoding means the computer will convert the instruction into the machine language. Machine language means, as I told you, computer cannot understand our language, and to understand our instruction, the computer will decode that instruction into 0, 1. That is the language of the computer, and then the computer can follow all the instructions that are provided by the user. So the CPU processes an instruction using its decoder. When it's sent from the instruction register, the CPU turns the instruction into the series of signals. Signals can be in form of 0 and 1. Then it will be executed or interpreted by the different parts of CPU that we have studied in previous slides. Then execution. Execute means in the end it will execute that instruction, means it will process that instruction. In the instruction, the which work we have given to the computer will do that work. Instructions are sent to other parts of the processor to be executed. The CPU register save instructions for after execution. This helps to improve the speed of processor because it can remember some instruction it has processed. There is no need to access that instruction from the RAM. It will save on the register, so it can easily read that instruction and work according to that instruction. Now the motherboard. Motherboard is the main component of our system. That is a platform on which we have to place all the parts of our computer. Either it is a RAM, either it is a hard disk. So the motherboard is the main board through which we can all these components can access the electric power. So that is also known as the circuit board of the computer system, or the logic board, or the main board. The computer system, the biggest component inside the computer system is motherboard, as it is a platform on which we have to edge all other components. It will control all the components and establish a link by creating the signals or by giving the signals between all the components of the computer. So the motherboard, from the motherboard, different components like ROM, CPU, RAM, slots, USB ports, and other components are connected. So that is the platform through which the all the computer components can communicate with each other. Now, the basic components of motherboard. These are the ports. Like we have the sockets inside over switchboards that are the place through which we can attach different type of devices towards over boards, and we can use that devices in the way the computer has the ports that are also known as the sockets that are attached to the motherboard. So these are the switches are the ports through which we can connect the external devices to with our computer, like the USB ports can be used to attach over printer, can be used to attach over scanner, that can be used to attach over keyboard and mouse. So different type of ports are used to attach different type of over external devices. So external devices are connected by using the cables, and these cables have the points that can be placed inside the ports, and ports provides the electric power to that components and that devices. So ports are the slots on the motherboard into which a cable of the external device is plugged in. Example of external devices can be a mouse, keyboard, monitor, microphone, and the speaker. There are different types of ports: serial port, parallel ports. So different type of devices can be used these type of ports. The serial port is used for the external modems and older computer mouse. And nowadays we are not using the serial ports. That ports has 9 to 25 pins, and the speed was slow, and that can send only one bit at the same time. So these are the older ports. Nowadays we are avoiding these ports. In the older mouse has that use that kind of port. Now the parallel port, the monitor port is the parallel port that has a high speed for the communication, that is used by the scanners and the printers, and also called the printer port, and that have 25 pins inside that. PS2 port used for the old computer keyboard and the mouse, also called the mouse port, because that is used by the mouse. Most of the old computer provide two PS2 port, each of the mouse and the keyboard. Universal serial bus, that is the most commonly used port, that is USB port. It can connect all kind of external USB devices such as hard disk, printer, scanner, mouse. Nowadays, mostly external devices use that port and along with the wire, so we can easily access that device, as these ports has high speed for the communication. So we are using for mostly devices we are using that kind of port. Most of the computers provide two USB ports as a minimum, but we can adjust more ports inside the computers. Data travels at the 12 megabits per second in the USB ports. VGA ports, like for the video communication with the computer, we have the video cards, and the VGA ports are used for the communication of that type of cards. So it has the 15 holes in that, similar to the serial port connector. However, the serial port connector has the pins, VGA port has the holes in that. Power connector, as we have to provide the power supply to all the components, so we have the power connector that has the three plugs inside that connects the power cables that plug onto the that is also edged on the motherboard, and that is used to that is in form of strip, and different lines are there in that strip that is placed on the motherboard, and that can give the power supply to all the components. Modem port, that is used for the internet connection, and the telephone port will be connected towards the modem port. And nowadays we are not using the internal modems, we are using LAN card. So the port is known as the LAN card port. We can use that type of port. That is the Ethernet port. Firewire port transfers large amount of data at very fast speed, connects camcorders and the video equipment to the computer. Like if we want to attach the camera towards with our computer, we can use these ports. Data travel at 400 to 800 megabits per second, as we need fast communication for our video data. Invented by the Apple, it has three variants: 4 pins, 6 pins, and 9 pin connectors. Ethernet port, as nowadays we are not using the modems, we have to use the LAN cards. For that port is known as Ethernet port, that is used for the high speed internet connections, connects the network cable to the computer. This port resides on the Ethernet card, that are also known as the LAN card. That speed is 10 megabits to the 1000 megabits per second. Game port, the joystick will be attached by using that port to the computer, and nowadays we are using the USB port instead of game port. Digital video interface, DVI port, that is used to attach the LCD monitor to the computer, and the socket connect the microphone and the speakers to the sound card of the computer. Nowadays also we are using the USB ports for that devices. Now the CPU chip, the central processing unit, is the processor that control all the functions of computer system. That is chip on available on the motherboard, that is actual responsible for the calculation. The overall flow of tasks and functions are controlled by the central processing unit for computer system. The central processing unit is called the brain of computer. RAM slots, the place where we have to fix the RAM chips, that is known as RAM slots. So that is available on the motherboard. That's why we are saying that RAM is the internal memory. In the general computer system, there are mainly 2 RAM slots, but sometimes there can be 4 plus slots in the motherboard. Whenever we have to use high-speed computers, we can use multiple RAM chips inside that motherboard to increase the speed of our computer. CMOS battery, like we have the power supply inside the computer, but before the supply of the power, we need some battery to store some of our instruction on the ROM. That battery is known as CMOS battery, that is used to store the BIOS, basic input output instructions, and that is also available on the motherboard. It is used to store the date and time in it. Power supply slot, on which we have to fix the power supply of our computer, that is known as power supply slot, and it is used to provide the electric supply to all the components of the computer. The total power supply given to the system is around 110 AC power. In the power supply type connector, there are the 20 pins that are used to maintain the power supply to the computer system. Graphic card, like whenever we are talking about the video communication inside the computer, for that purpose we have to use the graphic card. If there is no graphic card, all the images will not be clear, and we cannot give the video instructions towards our system, or we cannot easily see the images in front of us. So the graphic card is type of display adapter or video card installed within most computing devices to display graphical data with high clarity, color definition, and overall appearance. The graphic card provides high quality visual display by processing and executing graphical data. So all the data that is related to the graphics will be handled by the graphic card. That use advanced graphical techniques, features, and functions. A graphical card is known as graphic adapter, graphic controller, and graphics accelerator card, or graphic board. So there are the different names used for that. For the voice communication, or for the voice encoding or decoding, we are using the sound card. If there is no sound card inside the computer, it will not understand the voice commands given by the user, and it will not give the voice output from the speakers. So sound cards are internal hardware devices that plug into the motherboard. Mostly these are the internal devices. A sound card's main function is to allow the computer to produce sound, but they also allow user to connect microphone in order to input sounds into the computer. So the sound card is responsible to convert the human voice into the digital signals that can be understood by the computer, and again the digital signal will be converted into the human voice, so we can understand the voice that is produced by the speakers. So the sound cards are useful in the conversion of analog data into digital and the vice versa. The voice signals are available in form of analog form, and the digital signals are produced by the computer. Now the external components that are available outside the computer. Input devices that are used to give the input or data towards the or fed data inside the computer, that are known as the input devices. The different type of input devices are available, that can be mouse, keyboard, scanner, microphone. Different type of other devices are also available, like joystick. These are the light pens. These are the devices that are used to give the instructions towards the computer. So for the instruction towards the computer, we can use the input devices, as the data is available in different forms. So different type of input devices can be used by the user. The most commonly used input devices are keyboard and mouse. Output devices. Output devices are used to display the results after the processing. So these are the output devices. Different type of output devices are available. As we know, the data can be shown towards the user in different forms, like in voice form, in pictures form, in the text form, so in digital form. So we have to use different type of output devices. Most commonly used output devices: monitor, we can use the projectors, we can use headphones, we can use the speakers, and we can also use printers and the plotters. Peripheral devices, the devices that is not part of main processing, like processor is not included in the peripheral devices. All the devices that are act as the input or output device that is responsible for reading or writing the data to or from the computer is the peripheral devices. Sometimes the IO devices, input output devices, are also known as the peripheral devices. A peripheral device is not core device for a computer, which means a computer can work without the peripheral devices connected to it. Computer can work without it. So as I told you, the CPU is the brain of the computer, and if there is no CPU, the computer cannot do any work. But without peripheral devices, like without printer, the computer can work easily and efficiently. Peripheral devices are generally provide extra function and data input and output functionality to the computer system. Like I told you the example of the printer. Also peripheral devices may include the sound card, video card, CD-ROM, or the external joystick, scanner, printer, etc. Components of supercomputer. Now there I have discussed all the general components of the devices. These are the list of components that we are using along with the different type of computers. The supercomputers may include the hard drives, memory, and processors. So as supercomputer has thousands of processors inside that, that's why the supercomputers are the fastest computer. Components of mainframe computer that are used for the networked environment and that can facilitate multiple users at the same time. So they have the processing unit. CPU has the various printed circuit boards, memory modules, different processors and interfaces for each channel, because they are facilitating multiple persons. So different type of processing unit is used by mainframe computer. All channel works as a communication medium in between the input output terminal and memory modules. So as the multiple persons can work by using mainframe computer, so different channels are made on that. These are known as the terminals, and by using these terminals, the multiple persons can give instructions to the mainframe computer. The main objective of using these channels is to transfer data and for managing the system components. Multiprocessor, as they have to handle multiple persons at the same time, so multiprocessors are used inside that system. It means that it has the multiple processor for processing the massive data in the small time frame with the using error handling and interrupt handling routines, so that have multiple processors. Motherboard. Mainframe's motherboard contains the several high-speed processors, main memory, and different computer hardware parts which are perform their function through the bus architecture. In the motherboard, 128-bit buses concept is used. Like for the transferring of data from one place to another place, the buses are used, and the high-speed buses are used in the mainframe computer. The terminals, as it is designed, these type of computers are designed for multiple users, so terminals are the points. By using that points, the different users can work simultaneously by using these computers. The user can access the mainframe computer through the terminal contains input and output device. The input was given through the terminal cannot store data or process data on its own. We have to give the instruction. All the processing and storage was done by the mainframe computer. Monitor and keyboard, mostly we are using the two devices for the terminal, that is monitor and keyboard. Components of mini computer. Mini computer generally have the same parts as the computer, but there are few differences in the general computer and the mini computer. Processor, they have the different processor, as they have to handle the hundreds of users, so that have a powerful processor. Memory, that have two types of memory, read-only memory and random access memory. ROM cannot be altered while the RAM can be repurposed. As I have told, I have explained these two types of memory. Storage, mini PC use flash memory to hold the information. These are the fastest memory, so that's why we are using that memories for that, and that is also used for a backup storage, or that can be easily moved from one place to another place. Like USB type of memory can be used in the mini computers. Operating system, different type of operating system is used with the mini computer that can handle hundred of users at the same time. Computer ports that allow connection with other devices such as monitor, keyboard. Depending on the mini PC, it also have the USB, audio jack, and different other things that depends on the working of our computer. What's missing in the mini PC? There is these two things are missing in the PC that is not included. The first thing is cooling system. This may pose to be an issue since computing generates heat, but you can always add a fan to your mini PC if there is your concern, because when there is electric power, and then it will be generate the heat. So for cooling purpose, we have to use the fan. Physical interface, there is no display, keyboards or mouse, and thus this is something you have to add on your purchase. Like built-in things are not available in the mini computer, we have to add over things. But some mini PCs do support Bluetooth. If not, you can always connect using the USB ports. Multimedia computer system, it is a central processing unit. It is very fast, as it is not a general purpose computer, it is a specific purpose computer. It needs to process large amount of data. It has huge storage capacity, as we have to use that computer for a specific purpose. It has huge memory power that helps in running heavy data programs. It has capacity graphic card, and that helps in displaying the graphic, animation, video, etc. because that is related to the multimedia things. Multimedia includes audio, video, images, these type of data that needs high definition video card and the audio card. So we are using the high capacity graphics card because they can support the multimedia, and we can edit and make different type of videos by using the multimedia computer systems. The sound system make it easy to listen the audio. With all these features, a computer system is known as high-end multimedia computer. So whenever we need to do the work with the graphics, we have to use these types of computers. All the features listed above are not essentially required for every multimedia computer system, but rather the features of the multimedia computer system are configured as per the need of, as that is a specific purpose computer. So the computer will design these type of computers according to their need. Now, components of mid-range computer system. Mid-range is loosely defined term of a computer that is more powerful than the general purpose PCs and less powerful than the mainframe computer. That's why the mini computer also fall inside the mid-range computers. So the mid-range computer is employed as a network server. We are using the server that can be facilitate the less than the thousand of user and more than the hundreds of users. So the computer generally have multiple processor, large amount of random access memory, and large hard drives because they have to store a lot of data related to hundreds of users. So they need larger hard disks. Additionally, they usually contain the hardware that allows advanced networking and ports for connecting the peripheral devices. We have to attach multiple peripheral devices. So we are using different ports as large scale data storage devices. Components of pieces. PC means personal computer that we are used for the individual purpose, like desktop computers, laptop computers that falls in the personal computers. That includes motherboard, processor, RAM, ROM, graphic card, video card, sound card, storage devices, input devices, output devices, and peripheral devices. Components of workstation. These are the desktop pieces designed to handle demanding workflows such as the science, like we have to create the animated videos in the science, or we have to generate the videos that is used to train the pilots. We have to make the 3D designs. We have to do the video editing, and for engineering purpose, we have to working models, animated working models like for dams and for other things. So for that purpose, we are using the workstation. The difference between the PC and workstation is that it's the performance that is more efficient computer as compared to workstations are more efficient computers as compared to the PC. Components of digital computer. All the types that we have studied include in the digital computers. So the typical computer has 4 basic components: input, output equipment, main memory, control unit, and arithmetic logic unit. Any number of devices is used to enter the data and program instructions into a computer and to gain access to the results that is processed by the processor. Common input device include the keyboard and the optical scanners. Output devices include printers and monitors. All the devices that we have discussed are the part of digital computers. The information is received by the computer from its input unit, and processing is done by the ALU and the control unit, and all the data will be saved in the auxiliary memory or the secondary storage. The control unit select all the calls and instruction that will coordinate all the activities, and that will give instructions towards all the devices, which device will do which type of work, in which sequence all the commands will be done. So these are the things that is controlled by the control unit. It's synchronized and where operating speeds of the input and output devices to that, the arithmetic logic unit. So that is responsible to coordinate the activities and to handle all the activities and movement of the data inside the entire computer system. ALU is used to perform the arithmetic and the logical unit, as I told you, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, less than, greater than, these type of instruction will be done in the ALU unit. The main memory is used to store the currently executed instructions that are needed by the CPU, and the auxiliary memory is used to store all the data permanently, and we have to store our files and operating system in the auxiliary storage. And these are the components of analog computer that is used to handle the physical quantities. So we have to use different type of things like multipliers, potential meters, fixed function generators, operational amplifiers, precision resistors, and capacitors. So that are the devices that are needed by the physical devices like capacitor and precision registers it is an electronic device that is used to store the charge. Precision registers are particularly suitable for application requiring a high degree of accuracy of the component used. Like whenever we need accurate result, we have to use these type of things. Operational amplifiers, it is a DC coupled high gain electronic voltage amplifier that will increase the voltage with the difference in input and usually a single ended output. We can use different inputs for that and it will produce only one output. Operational amplifiers are used to perform mathematical operations in linear, non-linear and frequency dependent circuits. So different physical solution of different physical equations, we can use these type of components. Multiplier is a device that takes two analog signals and produce an single output. That can be sum or product of that. Multiplier is mostly used for the product, as the production product is the repetition of the addition. So such circuits can be used to implement related functions such as square or square roots. Potential meter is the three terminal resistor with the sliding or rotating contact that forms an adjustable voltage divider. Like we can adjust the voltage according to that, and that are commonly used to control the electronic devices such as volume control and other audio equipment. Function generator. The function generator is usually a piece of electronic test equipment or software used to generate different types of electrical waveforms over a wide range of frequency. That can be a high frequency or the low frequency. Some of the most common waveform produced by is the sine wave, square wave, triangle wave shapes are can be produced by using that. Components of hybrid computer, that is combination of analog and digital computers. So both type of components can be used by the hybrid computer. So the digital component usually acts as a controller and prepares logical and numerical operation, and in contrast the analog components are used to solve the different equations, and different mathematical operations can be done by using the analog components. So both type of components can be used by using the along with the hybrid computers. Any issue?
Ma'am, I did regarding cache.
Okay, sorry.
Regarding cache,
Uh,
ma'am,
yes.
we have on our apps we have cache, right? So what does it mean when it says to clear cache? Because cache is a memory, you said, right?
Yes.
So what does it mean when we clear the cache?
It means that whenever we are saving any type of data on our computer that have addresses, but sometime the we have to delete some things, but sometime accidentally we have sent some things towards the trash. So that we can say that if we want to restore something from that, or we have to remove some data permanently from that, we can say that that is used as a second option inside in our computer. If we want to retrieve the data, if we permanently delete something from the computer, we cannot restore that type of data inside the computer. So for that purpose we are using that type of memories that can be
Okay, ma'am,
removed from
thanks.
our index register, but that cannot be moved from the memories. When we will remove that data from the trash, that cannot be available inside our computer. So in future we cannot access that type of memory data.
Okay, ma'am, thank you, understood.
Okay. Okay. Any other question?
No,
No,
ma'am.
miss, I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Take care. Have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz, miss.